Commander Daehyun stood in the observation gallery of the council chamber, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the greatest powers in the galaxy decide humanity's fate. The chamber was enormous, a sphere of crystalline material that floated in the void above Terminus Prime. 847 species had representatives here, each sitting in their designated section. The humans occupied a small corner near the back, barely visible among the sea of alien forms. Dr. Yunji sat at the human delegation's table below, her face pale but determined. She had spent 3 weeks preparing her defense, working 18-hour days to compile evidence and testimony. Next to her sat Admiral Minho, the old warrior's face carved from stone showing no emotion. But Daehyun knew him well enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed silently against the table. The Velthic High Arbiter hovered at the center of the chamber, his energy form pulsing with ancient power. He was old beyond human comprehension, a being of pure thought and force who had witnessed civilizations rise and fall. When he spoke, his voice echoed through every translator in the room. The matter before this council is clear. The human species has violated the principles of proportional response. When Draxian raiders attacked their colony on Tarsus 7, the humans did not merely defend themselves. They pursued the raiders across 3 systems. They destroyed 17 ships. They killed 4,000 Draxian citizens. This is not defense. This is savagery. Daehyun felt his jaw tighten. Those raiders had murdered 2,000 colonists, most of them civilians, children, the elderly. They had bombarded settlements from orbit, burning farms and homes. And the council called humanity's response savage? Dr. Yunji rose to speak, her voice steady despite the weight of billions watching. High Arbiter, honored council members, I ask you to consider the context. The Draxian hierarchy has raided human colonies 17 times in the past 5 years. Each time we filed complaints through proper channels. Each time the council took no action. We defended our people because no one else would. A Draxian representative, resembling a massive insect with silver carapace, clicked its mandibles in anger. The human speaks lies. Those were independent raiders not sanctioned by our government. The humans use this excuse to justify their bloodlust. They are a young species, barely civilized. They do not belong among us. The Luminar Collective's spokesman, a being of shifting light, added its voice. We have examined human mental patterns. They are chaotic, violent, unstable. Their thoughts burn with aggression. They celebrate warriors and war. They write songs about conflict. This is not the mindset of a peaceful species. Yunji's hands trembled, but her voice remained strong. Every species has conflict in their history. Every species has had to fight for survival. Humanity seeks peace, but we will not be victims. We will not watch our people die while this council debates procedure. Peace? The Velthic High Arbiter's energy form flared brighter. In 73 years of membership, humans have been involved in more violent incidents than any other species. Your military is proportionally larger than any council race. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your children play with weapons. You are a species defined by conflict. Admiral Minho stood, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. You want to talk about violence? The Draxian hierarchy conquered 40 species to build their empire. The Velthic subjugated entire sectors through threats and intimidation. The Luminar Collective rewrites the memories of those who disagree with them. Every species here has blood on their hands. The only difference is that humanity is honest about what we are. The chamber erupted in angry chittering, humming, and electronic protests. The High Arbiter raised his form and silence fell instantly. The human admiral proves our point. Defiance, aggression, refusal to accept guidance from elder species. The motion before this council is clear. Humanity must be removed from council space for the safety of all civilized beings. Daehyun watched as the vote was called. One by one, species cast their judgment. Green lights for banishment. Red lights for allowing humanity to stay. The board filled with green, an ocean of rejection. Some species Daehyun had thought were friends voted against humanity. Others abstained, too afraid to stand with them. The final tally appeared. 731 for banishment, 116 against, with scattered abstentions. Dr. Yunji sat down slowly, her face ashen. 73 years of diplomacy, of trying to prove humanity belonged, had ended in overwhelming rejection. The High Arbiter's voice was final. The Council has spoken. Humanity is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. All humans must withdraw from Council space within 30 standard days. All colonies in the Orion Arm must be abandoned. All trade agreements are terminated. Humanity is restricted to their home system of Sol and may not expand beyond a 50-light-year quarantine zone. Any violation will be met with military force. This session is concluded. The chamber began to empty. Some species left quickly, avoiding eye contact with the human delegation. Others lingered, whispering among themselves, casting curious glances at the defeated humans. Daehyun descended to the floor where his colleagues waited. Yoonji stood like a statue, staring at nothing. Admiral Minho was already on his communicator, issuing orders in a low voice. "Yoonji," Daehyun said softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I failed. I thought if we just showed them, if we proved we could be peaceful if we followed their rules. But it was never going to matter, was it? They made up their minds about us before we ever joined." "You didn't fail," Daehyun said firmly. "They failed. They had a chance to work with us to benefit from what humanity brings to the galaxy. Instead, they chose fear." Admiral Minho ended his call and turned to them. "Protocol Exodus is active. Every human ship in Council space is being recalled. Colony governors are preparing evacuation. We have 30 days to move 15 million people and everything we've built." "Where will we go?" Hyunji asked quietly. "Everywhere they told us not to," Minho replied with a thin smile. "For 70 years, our intelligence services have been mapping systems in the wild reaches, the areas beyond Council authority. Thousands of worlds they ignore because the space is unstable or worthless. We'll show them what worthless really means." Daehyun looked out the viewport at the stars beyond Terminus Prime. Somewhere out there was Earth, humanity's homeworld, waiting for the news of their exile. Scattered across dozens of systems were human colonies, families who had built lives among the stars. "They think they're getting rid of a problem," Daehyun said quietly. "They have no idea what they've done," Admiral Minho nodded. "They've given us a reason. They've freed us from their rules and their restrictions. They've shown 15 million humans that we can never rely on anyone but ourselves. What do we do now?" Yoonji asked. Daehyun turned to face his friends, and for the first time since the vote, he smiled. "We survive, we build. We show them that humanity doesn't need their counsel or their approval. We'll forge our own path, and when we're done, they'll remember the day they made their greatest mistake." The three of them stood together in the empty council chamber, humanity's last representatives in a place that had rejected them. But they were not defeated. They were angry, determined, and absolutely unwilling to give up. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. Captain Ji-won gripped the armrests of her command chair as the colony ship New Horizon shuddered through another gravity well. Around her, alarms blared warnings about hull stress and overheating engines. This was the fourth jump in 6 hours, pushing their old ship far beyond safe limits. But safety was a luxury they could no longer afford. "Captain, we're getting close to the quarantine boundary," her navigator called out. "Council patrol detected 3 light minutes ahead. Change course. Take us through the Keller Drift," Ji-won ordered. Her first officer looked alarmed. "Captain, that's uncharted space. The gravitational anomalies there could tear us apart." "So will that Council patrol if they catch us carrying banned technology," Ji-won replied grimly. In the New Horizons cargo holds were fabrication units, genetic samples, and agricultural equipment that the Council had demanded humanity surrender. Equipment that 12,000 colonists would need to survive wherever they ended up. "Take us through." The ship banked hard, diving into a region of space that made her instruments scream in protest. Reality seemed to twist around them as overlapping gravity fields pulled in different directions. But the New Horizon held together, and when they emerged on the other side, the Council patrol was far behind. This was the reality of humanity's exodus. 15 million people fleeing across Council space, taking whatever they could carry, pursued by those who wanted to ensure humanity left with nothing. Some ships were intercepted and stripped of everything valuable. Others simply disappeared, lost to pirates or spatial hazards. Ji-won had been a merchant captain before the banishment, running trade routes between human colonies and Council worlds. Now she was leading desperate refugees into the unknown, following coordinates that Admiral Minho's intelligence services had compiled, star systems that the Council considered worthless, places where humanity might survive, if they were lucky. 3 weeks later, the New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace in the Helios cluster. Jiwon stared at the scanner displays in wonder. 17 star systems clustered close together by cosmic coincidence. 5 had planets in the habitable zone. The readings showed mineral wealth beyond anything in Council space, and yet the surveys were marked as abandoned due to excessive stellar activity. Why didn't the Council claim this? Her first officer whispered. Because they're afraid of hard work, Jiwon replied. The stellar activity meant more radiation, more solar flares, more challenges. But humans had dealt with harsh environments before. Send word to the fleet. We found our new home. Over the next months, the first colonists landed on a world they named New Sol. It was beautiful and deadly. The sky was constantly lit by auroras from the solar radiation. The native plants were toxic until properly processed. Storms raged with violence that would have sent Council species fleeing, but the humans stayed. They built underground shelters. They modified their equipment. They adapted as humans always had. Captain Jiwon walked among the first settlement, watching families set up temporary homes in prefabricated structures. Children played in the red dirt, already treating this alien world as their playground. Old men and women planted earth crops modified for the local soil. Everyone worked. Everyone contributed, because they all understood that failure meant extinction. Young-ho arrived with the second wave, bringing his entire cartography division. He was a quiet man who lived for maps and navigation charts. Within months, he had survey ships mapping every system in the wild reaches, identifying habitable worlds, resource deposits, and safe navigation routes. His discoveries were staggering. The region contained more useful systems than the entire Council controlled, all ignored because of spatial instabilities that human technology could navigate. Meanwhile, Commander Daehyun oversaw construction of Bastion Station in a dense asteroid field. The location was perfect for hiding, with enough rocks to confuse sensors and enough raw materials to build whatever they needed. Human engineers, freed from Council regulations and restrictions, designed ships that would have been illegal in Council space. Faster engines, heavier weapons, experimental shielding. Dr. Yoonji threw herself into a different mission. During the Exodus, several non-Council species had quietly helped humanity. Minor races that the Council barely acknowledged, species deemed too primitive or too different to matter. Yoonji reached out to them, not as a superior seeking subjects but as an equal seeking friends. The first species she contacted were the Kelvin, lithoid beings living on high-gravity worlds rich in rare metals. The Council had classified them as pre-industrial and forbidden contact. But the Kelvin had developed unique mineral processing techniques that humans could use. In exchange for human technology and trade, the Kelvin agreed to an alliance. Next came the Cytheri, winged people who navigated by sensing gravitational fields. They knew paths through the wild reaches that no Council ship could follow. They became humanity's guides, teaching humans to read the space around them in new ways. The Torven were amphibious traders who operated in the shadows of Council space, smuggling goods and information. They brought news of what was happening in the galaxy, and more importantly, they brought trade. Through Torven networks, humans gained access to materials and technology without the Council knowing. Admiral Minho coordinated everything from his command ship. He was building more than just a military. He was creating the foundation of a new civilization. Every colony had militia. Every ship carried weapons. But they also had schools, hospitals, farms, and factories. Humans were not just surviving. They were building something that would last. By the third year of exile, humanity had established 12 colony worlds. Each one was different, each one challenging, but all of them thriving. The population in the wild reaches reached 3 million, with more arriving every month as word spread that humanity had found sanctuary. Sora, a young pilot who had fled from a Council border station, found her calling in the new Commonwealth Defense Force. She flew patrol missions, protecting colony ships from pirates and raiders. In her first engagement, she defended a transport carrying 5,000 refugees from 4 pirate vessels. She destroyed 2 and forced the others to flee, earning herself a reputation as someone you didn't want to face in combat. The transformation was remarkable. Humans who had been merchants, scientists, farmers, and teachers were now pioneers, warriors and builders of a new society. They worked longer hours than they had in Council space. Life was harder, more dangerous, more uncertain. But there was something in their eyes that hadn't been there before. Pride, purpose, freedom. Captain Jiwan stood on a hill overlooking New Seoul 5 years after landing. The settlement had grown into a city of 50,000. Farms stretched across the valleys. Factories produced everything from tools to starship components. Children born on this world ran through streets knowing no other home. "We did it," her first officer said, standing beside her. "We actually survived." Jiwan shook her head. "We did more than survive. We built something better." She looked up at the sky where construction lights from orbital facilities twinkled like new stars. "The council thought they were getting rid of us. They thought we would crawl back to Earth and never leave again. They have no idea what's coming." In the asteroid field, Bastion Station was completing its first batch of warships. On a dozen worlds, humans were raising a generation that knew only independence. In the depths of space, young-ho scouts were finding new systems every week. And in the shadows, Torvan traders carried stories of the banished humans who refused to disappear. The galaxy had tried to erase humanity from its story. Instead, humanity was writing a new chapter, one that the Council would eventually have to acknowledge. The exiles were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. They were becoming a power that answered to no one, bound by no rules except their own, driven by the memory of rejection and the determination never to be victims again. Admiral Minho watched status reports flow across his screens, showing the growth of what they now called the human commonwealth. He allowed himself a rare smile. "Let them try to ignore us now," he said to the empty command center. "Let them try." Fleet Admiral Sunwoo studied the tactical displays showing the massive Council fleet assembling at Terminus Prime. 8,000 warships from 17 different species, the largest military force gathered in living memory. Their target was clear, the human commonwealth. Their intention was equally obvious, complete destruction. "They're not even trying to hide it," his intelligence officer reported. "Council propaganda broadcasts are calling us pirates, savages, a threat to civilized space. They're telling their citizens that humanity must be eliminated for the galaxy's safety." Sunwoo nodded slowly. He had expected this. The Battle of New Daegu had terrified the Council. For 10,000 years, they had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Now a species they had banished was challenging their authority, and they couldn't allow that to stand. "How long until they move?" he asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. They're still integrating their fleet. 17 species means 17 different command structures, communication systems, and tactical doctrines. "It's a mess." "Good," Sunwoo replied with a thin smile. "Let's make it worse." Ambassador Minji was already working on the diplomatic front, traveling to neutral worlds with evidence of Council corruption. She showed them records of the Council's oppression of minor species, their exploitation of weaker civilizations, their refusal to help worlds in need, and she contrasted it with the Commonwealth's treatment of the remnant species, the equality and respect humans offered their allies. Some neutral species were moved by her arguments. Others were too afraid of Council retaliation to act. But several began secretly providing information and supplies to the Commonwealth. The Torvan networks, always operating in the shadows, expanded their smuggling operations to include military intelligence from within Council space. On New Seoul, Dr. Nari unveiled her team's most controversial creation. The Council had banned singularity weapons millennia ago after seeing the devastation they caused. The weapons created miniature black holes that consumed everything nearby, warping space itself. They were considered too dangerous, too destructive, too terrible to use. The Commonwealth had no such restrictions. "Are you sure about this?" President Heejin asked, looking at the prototype missile. "Once we use these, there's no going back. The Council will call us monsters." "They already call us monsters," Dr. Nari replied quietly. "They're coming to exterminate us, to wipe out nearly 1 billion people. These weapons might be the only thing that saves us." Meanwhile, young soldier Taeyang was stationed at New Busan, a frontier colony of only 70,000 people. He was 21 years old, born on Earth but raised in the Commonwealth. He had never known the Council, never experienced the humiliation of the banishment. To him, the Commonwealth was everything, and he would die to protect it. When the Council fleet began its advance, they sent smaller forces ahead to secure strategic positions. A battle group of 12 ships arrived at New Busan with orders to establish a forward base. They expected the small colony to surrender immediately, Instead, Taeyang and his squad of 30 Marines refused to let them land. For 3 days, those 30 soldiers held the main landing zone against waves of council troops. They used every trick General Jihoon had taught them. They turned the terrain into a maze of traps and ambushes. They fought from tunnels and bunkers, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. They made the council forces pay for every meter of ground with blood. Taeyang's desperate transmissions were broadcast across the Commonwealth. "We are human and we bow to no one. Come and try to take our home. We'll show you what it means to fight for everything you have." His defiance inspired millions. By the time reinforcements arrived to relieve his position, Taeyang had become a symbol of Commonwealth resistance. Fleet Admiral Sun Woo didn't wait for the council to attack. He launched Operation Thunderbreak, a series of lightning raids on council supply lines. Commonwealth ships, faster and more agile than anything the council had, struck fuel depots, ammunition stockpiles, and communication relays. They appeared from nowhere, destroyed their targets, and vanished before council forces could respond. Sora led her squadron in a daring raid on a council command station, destroying the facility that coordinated fleet movements for an entire sector. General Jihoon's Marines captured a Luminar communications hub, stealing encryption codes and intelligence about council fleet dispositions. Every raid was surgical, precise, and devastating. The council fleet, already struggling to coordinate 17 different species, began to fall apart. Ships couldn't refuel on schedule. Orders were delayed or lost. Units arrived at the wrong locations. The massive force that should have steamrolled over the Commonwealth was instead stumbling and confused. But the council pressed on, driven by desperation and fear. They couldn't back down now, not after committing so much. The Draxian commander ordered the fleet forward, targeting the forge systems at the heart of Commonwealth space. 5-star systems containing humanity's primary shipyards, factories, and orbital construction facilities. If they fell, the Commonwealth would lose the ability to build ships and weapons. Marshal Daehyun prepared the defense. He had 4,000 ships, supplemented by orbital fortresses and minefields. Against 8,000 council vessels, the odds seemed impossible. But Daehyun had studied every council battle in recorded history. He knew how they fought, knew their tactics, knew their weaknesses. The council expected a traditional battle, fleets meeting in formation and trading fire. Daehyun gave them chaos instead. Commonwealth ships operated in small, independent groups, each one acting on its own initiative. They used quantum slipstream drives to appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly, concentrating fire on weak points before vanishing. Admiral Sun Woo commanded from his flagship, watching the tactical display as his strategy unfolded. Council ships were powerful but slow, designed for slug-it-out battles. Commonwealth vessels were weaker individually but faster and smarter. They hit vulnerable ships, crippled engines and weapons, then moved on. They didn't try to destroy everything, just damage enough to force withdrawals. General Jihoon unleashed his Marines on a scale never seen before. Hundreds of assault craft launched simultaneously, each one targeting a different council ship. The Marines breached hulls, fought through corridors, and captured control centers from within. Council crews had never trained for this kind of combat. They panicked, surrendered, or died fighting in their own corridors. Sora's fighters were everywhere at once, exploiting their superior speed and maneuverability. Council point defense systems couldn't track them. Their larger ships couldn't turn fast enough to target such small, quick opponents. Sora personally disabled 4 cruisers by destroying their engine assemblies with precise strikes. Then Dr. Nari activated the Singularity missiles. 3 were enough. The massive Draxian dreadnoughts that led the council fleet simply ceased to exist, consumed by artificial black holes. The surrounding space warped and twisted as reality itself bent around the weapons' effects. Council crews watching from nearby ships felt primal terror at weapons that shouldn't exist. The council fleet's will broke. They had expected an easy victory over upstart humans. Instead, they were being torn apart by tactics they didn't understand, technology they couldn't counter, and warriors who refused to fight by their rules. Ships began to retreat individually, then in groups, then in mass panic. When the battle ended, the council had lost over 3,000 ships. The Commonwealth had lost 847 vessels and hundreds of thousands of brave men and women, including Captain Jiwon, who had rammed her crippled ship into a council carrier to protect an evacuation convoy. Her sacrifice saved 50,000 civilians and became another story of Commonwealth heroism. Marshal Daehyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the Council fleet flee. He felt no joy in victory, only weariness and grief for those who had fallen. But he also felt pride. Humanity had faced the greatest military force in galactic history, and not just survived, but won decisively. The news spread across the galaxy at light speed. The Council, invincible for 10,000 years, had been defeated by a species they had banished as primitive savages. Political upheaval followed immediately. Member species questioned the Velthic leadership. Some species, inspired by the Commonwealth's victory, withdrew from the Council entirely. President Hyegen delivered a message to the galaxy. The human Commonwealth did not seek this war. We wanted only to be left alone to build our society in peace. But we will not be destroyed. We will not be conquered. We offer peace to all species, Council and non-Council alike, on terms of equality and mutual respect. The age of the Council's dominance is over. A new age has begun. Ambassador Minji reported that 47 species had petitioned to join the Commonwealth within days of the victory. Most were minor species from the Council's oppressed members, but some were major powers reconsidering their allegiances. Taeyang, promoted to captain for his heroism at New Busan, stood at attention as President Hyegen pinned medals on the survivors of his squad. "You held the line when the galaxy thought we would break," she said. "You showed them what humanity truly means. The galaxy would never be the same." President Hyegen looked out at the assembled representatives from 47 human colonies, each one standing proudly under their world's banner. The convention hall on New Seoul had been built specifically for this moment, when scattered refugees would become something more. Something unified. 15 years ago we were told we didn't belong, she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. We were called violent, uncivilized, dangerous. We were cast out into the darkness, expected to fade away and be forgotten, but we refused. We built new homes. We made new friends among species the Council abandoned. And today we stand together not as refugees but as citizens of the human Commonwealth. The cheers were deafening. Every representative voted to ratify the Commonwealth Charter, a document that promised representation for all colonies regardless of size, guaranteed individual rights, and pledged mutual defense. It was everything the Council claimed to be but never was. Dr. Nari barely noticed the celebration. She was already back in her laboratory, working on problems that had consumed her for the past decade. The Council had thousands of rules about technology development, restrictions on weapons research, limits on genetic modification, bans on artificial intelligence, and countless other regulations designed to prevent younger species from growing too powerful. The Commonwealth had no such restrictions. Her team had started by studying Kelvin mineral processing. The lithoid species could extract materials from asteroids with 98% efficiency, far better than Council technology. By combining Kelvin techniques with human engineering, they created fabrication systems that could build complex components in a fraction of the time. Next came the Sithiri navigation methods. The winged people experienced space differently than humans, sensing gravitational currents and quantum fluctuations that human instruments couldn't detect. Dr. Nari developed neural interfaces that allowed human pilots to perceive space the way Sithiri did. The result was a new type of faster-than-light drive, the quantum slipstream, which was twice as fast as Council hyperdrives and could navigate through areas Council ships couldn't enter. But her most controversial project was what she called adaptive shielding. Council shields were powerful but static, designed to absorb energy until they failed. Nari's shields learned and adapted, shifting frequencies to counter whatever weapon struck them. The first test had been spectacular, with the shields successfully defending against weapons that should have penetrated easily. General Ji-hoon put Nari's technology to immediate use. He commanded the Commonwealth Marine Corps, an elite force trained in tactics the Council considered dishonorable. Boarding actions, ambushes, hit-and-run raids, the Council fought wars like formal duels, with fleets meeting in open space and trading fire until one side retreated. Humans fought to win, using every advantage they could find. He trained his Marines in zero-gravity combat, in fighting through damaged ships, in surviving situations that would kill Council soldiers. They learned to use the environment, to think creatively, to never give up. When pirates tried to raid the colony world of New Incheon, Jihoon's Marines didn't wait for them to attack. They boarded the pirate ships while they were still approaching, captured the crews, and claimed the vessels as prizes. Sora had become legendary among Commonwealth pilots. She commanded a squadron of the new Falcon-class fighters, small ships equipped with quantum slipstream drives and neural interfaces. Her unit could appear anywhere on a battlefield, strike hard, and vanish before the enemy could respond. She had personally destroyed 14 pirate vessels and helped capture 8 more. Other pilots competed to join her squadron, knowing that service with Sora meant seeing real action. The Commonwealth grew explosively. New Seoul now had 2 million people, and was the industrial heart of human space. Captain Jiwon had pioneered rapid terraforming techniques, using aggressive genetic modification and environmental engineering to make marginal worlds habitable in just 15 years. Colony after colony sprang up, each one adding to the Commonwealth's population and resources. Trade with the remnant species flourished. The Kelvin provided raw materials. The Sitheri served as couriers and scouts. The Torvin connected the Commonwealth to black markets throughout the galaxy, bringing in council technology and information. But the relationship was equal, not exploitative. Humans shared their technology freely, helped defend remnant worlds from raiders, and treated their allies with respect. The results were obvious. The Commonwealth economy grew by 20% annually. The population reached 800 million across 47 worlds. The military fielded 3,000 ships, each one incorporating technology the Council didn't have. Human society was vibrant, optimistic, and utterly confident in its future. But the Council was beginning to notice. Border incidents increased as Council patrols encountered Commonwealth survey ships. Several skirmishes occurred, with Commonwealth vessels using their superior speed to escape. Council intelligence agencies finally started asking the right questions about where humanity had gone and what they were doing. Commander Dae-hyun, now Marshal of the Commonwealth Defense Forces, knew the confrontation was coming. He could read the patterns. More Council ships near the old quarantine boundary. More aggressive patrol behavior. More surveillance. They were preparing for something. He wasn't surprised when a Draxian battle group crossed into Commonwealth space, heading for the frontier colony of New Daegu. The Draxian commander broadcast a simple message. This system is too close to Council territory. You will evacuate immediately or be removed by force. General Jihoon smiled when he heard the ultimatum. They actually think we'll just leave. They still don't understand who we are now. New Daegu had only 30,000 colonists, but it also had a full Marine battalion and orbital defense platforms. When the Draxian ships entered orbit and began targeting the settlements, they expected easy victory. They got a nightmare instead. Jihoon's Marines launched from hidden positions throughout the system. Using small, fast assault craft, they closed on the Draxian ships before the enemy even knew they were under attack. Marines breached hulls, fought through corridors, and captured control centers. The Draxian crews, trained for fleet battles, had no idea how to fight off borders. Sora's squadron hit the Draxian flagship. Their fighters too fast and maneuverable for the battleship's weapons to track. They crippled the engines and weapons, leaving it helpless. The orbital platforms, using Dr. Nari's adaptive shields, shrugged off Draxian fire and returned devastating salvos. In 3 hours, it was over. 3 Draxian warships were captured intact. 2 more were destroyed when they tried to flee. The rest of the battle group surrendered. Not a single Marine was killed, though several were wounded. The colonists of New Daegu never even needed to evacuate. Marshal Dae-hyun personally commanded the captured Draxian flagship back across the border into Council space. He transmitted continuously on all frequencies, ensuring everyone heard his message. The human Commonwealth does not seek war, but we will not be pushed. We will not be threatened. We will not surrender what we have built. Tell your council that humanity has changed. Test us again at your peril. The captured ship was released with its crew unharmed, but the message was clear. Humanity was no longer the frightened species that had fled Council space 15 years ago. They were stronger, more advanced, and absolutely unwilling to back down. President Hyejin addressed the Commonwealth that evening. Some will call today's victory the beginning of war. I call it the end of our childhood. We have proven we can defend ourselves. We have shown that we belong in this galaxy, Whether the Council accepts it or not, we did not choose exile, but we have made something beautiful from it, and no one, not the Draxians, not the Velthic, not anyone, will take it from us. Across 47 worlds, humans celebrated. They had faced the Council's military and won decisively. The fear that had haunted them since the banishment was gone, replaced by confidence and pride. But in the Council chamber above Terminus Prime, alarm bells were ringing. The Velthic High Arbiter stared at intelligence reports showing the true size and capability of the human commonwealth. The species they had dismissed as troublesome children had become a major power. And unlike the Council's careful, conservative approach to everything, humans were growing faster every year. How did we miss this? A Luminar representative asked in shock. The High Arbiter's energy form flickered with what might have been anger or fear. We assumed they would fail. We assumed exile would break them. We were wrong, and now we have a problem we cannot ignore. The Velthic High Arbiter sat alone in the Council chamber, his energy form flickering with uncertainty for the first time in millennia. Around him, the seats that should have held 847 species were half empty. The battle of the Forge systems had broken something fundamental in the Council's authority, and species were leaving in waves. On his display, he watched footage of the battle that had changed everything. Commonwealth ships moving like nothing the Council had ever seen. Marines fighting with ferocity that shocked civilized sensibilities. Weapons that violated every treaty and convention. And humans, always humans, refusing to quit no matter the odds. We created them, he said to the empty chamber. We could have guided them, worked with them, benefited from their unique perspectives. Instead, we feared them, rejected them, and tried to destroy them. Now they're stronger than us, and we have no one to blame but ourselves. A message arrived from the Commonwealth. Marshal Daehyun was requesting a diplomatic meeting to discuss terms. Not begging for mercy, not seeking forgiveness, but offering peace on equal terms. The old Velthic felt something he hadn't experienced in thousands of years. Respect. President Heejin stood before the Commonwealth Congress, addressing representatives from 93 colony worlds. In the 20 years since the banishment, humanity had grown from 15 million exiles to 2 billion citizens. The wild reaches were now called Commonwealth space, and humanity was its heart. The Council has requested negotiations, she announced. They want peace. They want to recognize our sovereignty. They want to pretend the banishment never happened. She paused, letting the murmurs die down. I propose we give them peace, but on our terms. We are not rejoining the Council. We are not accepting their authority. We are offering them a choice. Treat us as equals, or find themselves increasingly irrelevant in a galaxy that no longer respects their leadership. The vote was unanimous. The Commonwealth would negotiate from a position of strength, not as supplicants, but as the power they had become. Dr. Yunji, now white-haired and in her 60s, led the diplomatic mission to Terminus Prime. With her went Admiral Sunwoo, General Ji-hoon, Ambassador Minji, and young Captain Taeyang, whose fame had made him a symbol of Commonwealth determination. They arrived in a Commonwealth heavy cruiser, bristling with weapons and flying the human banner proudly. The Council representatives who met them were subdued, even frightened. These were not the desperate refugees they had banished 2 decades ago. These were confident, powerful people who had built an empire from nothing and defended it against impossible odds. Dr. Yunji faced the Velthic High Arbiter in the same chamber where humanity had been condemned. You told us we were too violent to remain in civilized space, she said quietly. You cast us out expecting us to fail, to crawl back begging for another chance. Instead, we built something better than what you have here. We created a society where every species has equal voice, where strength comes from cooperation rather than domination, where innovation is encouraged rather than restricted. The High Arbiter's form pulsed slowly. We were wrong about humanity. We feared your potential instead of embracing it. We let our arrogance blind us to your value. The Council formally apologizes for the injustice of the banishment. Apologies don't bring back the dead, Admiral Sunwoo said coldly. They don't restore the years of suffering. They don't undo the fact that you tried to exterminate us. No, the Arbiter agreed, but perhaps they can be a beginning. The galaxy is changing. The Council's old ways are dying. Species are leaving us to join your Commonwealth. Others are forming their own alliances inspired by your example. The age of council dominance is over. We recognize this. The question is what comes next. The negotiations lasted 3 weeks. The Treaty of Terra, named after humanity's homeworld, established the terms. The human commonwealth was recognized as a sovereign power with equal status to the council. The quarantine was abolished. Human ships could travel freely throughout the galaxy. All claims against humanity were dropped. Most importantly, the council agreed to reform its structure, giving minor species actual voting power instead of token representation. But the Commonwealth's influence went far beyond the treaty. 47 species had already joined, bringing the Commonwealth's total population to 5 billion across more than 300 worlds. The Kelvin, Sitheri, and Torvin were full members with equal rights. Former council species brought their knowledge and technology, combining with human innovation to create something unprecedented. Dr. Nari's research continued, now with access to council databases and the brightest minds from dozens of species. The quantum slipstream drive became standard technology, revolutionizing galactic travel. Adaptive shielding was adopted throughout Commonwealth space. New discoveries in medicine, agriculture, and manufacturing improved lives across hundreds of worlds. General Jihoon retired from active service to teach at the new Commonwealth Military Academy on New Sol. He trained officers from a dozen species, spreading the tactics and strategies that had defeated the Council. War is not about honor or glory, he told his students. It's about protecting what matters. Fight smart, fight hard, and never give up. That's the human way, and now it's your way too. Sora became the first human to command a mixed-species fighter wing. Her squadron included Sitheri pilots who could navigate impossible routes, Kelvin gunners with perfect aim, and human tacticians who thought creatively. Together, they protected Commonwealth space from pirates and raiders, becoming legends in their own right. Ambassador Minji established the first Commonwealth embassy on Terminus Prime, a massive structure that dwarfed most council facilities. It became a center of diplomacy, attracting species from across the galaxy seeking alternatives to council membership. Minji welcomed them all, explaining the Commonwealth's principles of equality, cooperation, and mutual defense. Captain Taeyang led exploration missions into deep space, seeking new worlds and new allies. He was no longer the young soldier who had held the line at New Busan. He was a seasoned officer, confident and capable, representing the best of what the Commonwealth had become. His ship discovered 17 new habitable systems in its first year, each one becoming home to Commonwealth colonists. On Earth, in the city where the United Nations had once met, a new monument was unveiled. It showed figures representing all the species of the Commonwealth, standing together in unity. The inscription read, "We were cast out into darkness. We turned that darkness into light. We are stronger together than any of us could be alone." President Hyejin, nearing the end of her second term, stood at the ceremony. 20 years ago, the council told us we didn't belong in their galaxy. Today, we've built something better than they ever imagined. We didn't do it through conquest or domination. We did it by offering friendship to the forgotten, dignity to the oppressed, and hope to those who had none. This is humanity's gift to the galaxy, not weapons or technology, but the belief that any species, any people can rise above their circumstances and achieve greatness. The Commonwealth continued to grow. New members joined monthly. Trade flourished. Technology advanced at unprecedented rates. Art, music, and culture blended as species shared their traditions. Children of different species played together on hundreds of worlds, growing up in a galaxy very different from the one their parents had known. The council adapted or died. Some council species embraced the changes, reforming their governments and treating their subject species better. Others clung to the old ways and found themselves isolated and irrelevant. The Draxian hierarchy collapsed into civil war as their oppressed species rebelled. The Luminar Collective retreated into isolation, unable to cope with a galaxy that no longer feared them. But the Velthic evolved. The High Arbiter, humbled by defeat, worked to transform the Council into something more like the Commonwealth. It was slow, painful work, but gradually the Council became more democratic, more inclusive, more just. Dr. Yunji, in her final years, reflected on humanity's journey. We were arrogant once, thinking we could join the Council and be accepted as equals without earning it. Then we were humiliated, cast out, and told we were worthless. But from that humiliation came growth. We learned that respect must be earned, that strength comes from unity, and that adversity reveals true character. The council thought they were punishing us. Instead, they freed us to become what we were always meant to be. Admiral Minho, now ancient and retired, sat on Earth watching the stars. He had lived to see humanity transform from a struggling species to a galactic power. He had watched his protocols and plans succeed beyond his wildest dreams. "They tried to break us," he said to his grandchildren gathered around him. "They only made us stronger. Remember that. Remember that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our military. It's our refusal to give up, our ability to adapt, and our willingness to stand together when everything seems lost." Fleet Admiral Sunwoo commanded the largest fleet in galactic history, not through conquest but through alliance. Ships from 90 species flew under the Commonwealth banner, each one committed to defending their shared civilization.